Hello, let me report what has happened here in the compound at Gran Jacamito in Andalusia, Spain. Some of you might remember that we had a hole here, and this is now filled. The hole came to be because we needed material for this in order to protect our temporary house, which has no foundation, from the rain. We wanted to avoid the water flowing underneath the house. So we did this while it was already raining, I guess. And we simply sunk the teeth of our backhoe in here and took the material out. That berm is still needed, so I used material from elsewhere to fill this up, and somehow I think I got it quite nice. So it's more or less even. This will change over time again, so there will be the road to get into our zone B, or referring myself to the video about permaculture tones, to the zone 2, where we do multiple times a week things. And of course there is the future dog enclosure once we have the yacht removed and the fence is completed. And the material to fill this came out of that big hole there, which is supposed to be a pond. Let me loop around, step over this wall. So this is now pretty deep, and I can take you inside literally. So let's go down here. That ramp is quite steep, but the backhoe manages to get in and out. And the thing that I can show you is this down there. So probably need to change something here. Yep. So now you might be able to see that this is moist. This is definitely moist. And who knows, this might be leaking a little bit of water, or it's the beginning of that. So that is our moisture level. So you can see how deep that is. So I would think this is 2.50 meters or so, probably. So over here, this is not enough. This is bone dry. But down there, there's something going on. So you can also see here there are some boulders. My plan is to move most of the material as much as is possible and use it for fill elsewhere, to have a deep area down here in this area. Those boulders, those here, they can be removed, but that one is a big one, and it sits together with another big one right there. So they will have to stay. With the big excavator, this of course would be a question of a few hours and no problem at all. But with that tiny backhoe, that takes a while, and certain things simply cannot be done. But we have it, and we can use it anytime, and it only costs a little bit of diesel, and that is not that much. So this, if connected to the water, to the groundwater, will then also stay filled. And if we do it right, so my idea is to put some vetiver slips all the way around, and I want to insert them like so that the grass grows like this. Of course this cannot be done right now, it is simply too dry, but next time in early spring, when it is still moist, that should then work. And the vetiver of course needs temperature. When the temperatures then rise, then this should establish itself. So that's probably something for April, when the moisture is more or less on a regular level. Let's hope we can do this. By tomorrow we should be able to plant 20 more of these guys. And this here also gets irrigated 2 times a day for about 20 minutes, but the hose delivers a lot of water. And I have a feeling that some of the things here are also germinating. Yes, they are. So for example there, you can definitely see something coming up. This might be sunhemp or sunflower. There's also okra in there, and we need to cut a few of the things that are helpful, but it's not okra. So for example, these things there we need to cut before they grow too tall, so that the okra can grow a little bit better. There is also the Bermuda grass in there. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see it here. And that's okay. The okra will be taller than that. The idea is to cover the ground, so that there is some shade. And the 7 palovnia trees, like this one here, they are also growing quite well. There is a new addition, a self-seeded sunflower. And over here, I am step by step in the afternoon filling this hole here. And as I'm here, let me show you the tagasaste. So here it is. There is something going on. It gets water every day. So whenever I water the rest to the right, I also give this some water. And let's hope that this somehow will develop. So it's definitely not out of water, because the things to the right are growing very well, and the whole area gets irrigated 2 times a day. But you can see, despite the fact that I irrigated, this is already a little bit dry on the surface, but it's on the surface, and this is straw and horse manure combined, so this definitely holds water for a lot longer. So this should work. And speaking about the horse manure, we have a huge pile there, and that pile will be used tomorrow when we plant the other palovnia trees, those 20 out of those 48 that we have there. So 12 are already planted, and we have 48. 20 will be quite good, and they will be placed here along this driveway. And you can also see that I put some stone there, and the idea is to cover all this, because this is from deep down in the pond. So I would think this is just minerals. There are no nutrients in here, and in order to provide the nutrients, we will use the horse manure straw mix. My idea is to mix this material a little bit, so not just on top, but really mix it so that the young trees have something to eat. And yesterday I was using the hose to wet this material, and as you can see, it got a little bit saturated here and there, and of course the idea is to continue doing that. You can see the footprints of the dogs. So this is not completely dry because of all the water that I put in, but of course it needs a lot more, because this material does not hold water for very long. It's very sandy. And as this is now going to be the official driveway into the compound, we use this material here to make this a little bit more stable and less muddy when the rain comes. That should work out very well. And once the rain that is in the forecast comes, then certainly this will settle down. Maybe it needs a bit more there where my shadow is, but we have plenty of this, and we can also move that a little bit over there, but probably another scoop would certainly then do this. The forecast for the next few days talks about some rain, and it looks pretty. But as you can hear, there's quite some wind going on, and it's kind of cold because the wind is cold, and hence the clouds. View back here, so this is getting along. The trees are settling down. I have to irrigate 2 or 3 times per day in order to keep this moist. Here and there the things that we seeded also sprouted. There you can see it, and there's more, but there's also a lot corn on the surface. The birds dug, and they were looking for the other seed, and you can see it on the surface also. So some of the seed basically was lost to the birds digging, but some of the plants are still coming up. So for example here, there are the first few, and this does not have to be perfect as long as it works, because this is for biomass to improve the biological components in the soil. Of course there are tools to make this very nice, but these tools will not work very well with all those stones. So it is a little bit challenging. We seeded this by throwing the seed out in the air, and then we raked it in as much as possible. And I have an idea to repeat this. So when the sunhemp and friends is grown, then we will cut them. But before we do this, we seed again. And then we cut the very, very tall plants, and then use this material to cover the seed. Not as a deep mulch to prevent anything from growing, but just to make it a little bit more inaccessible to the birds. Maybe this works. And if it does, then we have done an experiment that will also help us in other areas, like over there and elsewhere, where we want to play the same game. So Paulownia and other trees in combination with sunhemp and friends. So this is another test bed to learn how this might work. So we finished planting and seeding here. We seeded a bunch of things. There is sweet corn here in this area. Oh, actually I need to close it. It was a little bit premature, but you can see. So, and I exaggerated a little bit with the seed because they are old and who knows what will germinate and what not. So I will now close this. And then there are a bunch of flowers in there, and we also had some watermelon seed, and we distributed around the corner. So there around the corner, and we have 10 Paulownia trees here. This area got a lot of the horse manure mixed with straw, and we mixed this whole material with the bed soil that came out of the pond from the excavation. So I would assume this has no nutrients. This is just minerals and sand. So this is now improved. And there's also a ton of water in there. So we spent quite some time filling this up with water. And it's pretty saturated now. And of course the biological part definitely holds a lot more moisture. So this is looking good. And maybe in 2 weeks we see that this is becoming green. So I will now off camera close this, which I forgot, and then the job should be done here. So that's done now, and in the afternoon I give it another sprinkle on top to also wet a little bit the areas that kept a little bit dry on the surface, and then it's irrigation manually every day to keep it moist while the Andalusian sun is providing the heat, and we will see. Weather forecast talks about some rain shower, low probability, but at least the clouds are there. It could form. Some of these look like they could develop maybe in the afternoon. It would be great because this Cynodon here, the Bermuda grass, could definitely benefit from it. It likes the heat and is spreading, and due to our management with the animals in here only in certain moments, it definitely has a greenish touch, because more and more is holding out or is actually growing because it's a heat-loving plant. So not so bad. Also here on the other side it can clearly be seen. That is supposed to be summer forage. But of course some moisture is required. In there we also have it. This has been coming up every year a little bit more. Now imagine we had a lot more water stored in the soil. Then this would definitely conquer the whole area. Who knows, maybe we get a few rain showers throughout the summer. So here is now the update on A07. Let's start with the part here that is now outside of A7. That is the patch with the vetiver. And on the inside of what is now the actual A7, we have 3 sprinklers. They are turned on with a shut-off valve, which is located over there. That shut-off valve turns on the 3 sprinklers and also the drip irrigation here. That seems to work together without losing too much pressure. And this irrigates the area where we have seeded by using the picks for that, and it is working. So we do have plants coming up here. So there are a few of the things that were there before, and also things where we brought out seed. It is easier to see up here. So there, for example, there we have sunflowers and sun hemp that is making its appearance. Of course it will take a while, but you can clearly see
what is what. Also there in that patch where the straw is, some of the seed the pigs did eat. That was to be expected. But a lot of others, they stomped into the ground, and these things are now growing here. So for example there in that wallow, there's a lot of sun hemp, and there's also some corn coming up. We irrigate this area every second day and use our schedule in our Granja EU application to manage this. Of course the remainder of this area is dry. There is no irrigation, and we also did not seed there, so therefore there is no point to keep this moist. But around here, and you can see the butterflies, so there is life. Not so bad. And keep in mind, later in November I hope we can plant a lot of trees in here, about 9,000 trees. So I'm waiting on a confirmation from Life Terra EU, the lady who wants to visit us to plan this project. Said I am back and I am about to schedule a visit, so let's hope she comes soon, and then we can make a plan. So the idea is Life Terra EU will give us the trees and also some budget to plant them, and they like the idea of a Miyawaki style forest, so that means here for this area 9,000 saplings. And I hope we can put a few palovnia trees in here also, not that many, because the native trees are the interesting part here. And then hopefully this works out. And if you wonder, yes, I'm a little bit sick. When you have a kid in school, all the different respiratory illnesses, they get brought home. And first your kid is sick, and then you are sick. So it's a sequence. Hopefully in a week from now I'll be better. But I can do things and move about, and even film a video and speak. Sounds a bit funny, but it works. So to say this again, so I hope by November we can plant a lot of trees here. And I received 2 messages so far from some of you who want to lend us a hand. Maybe we can form a larger group, because 9,000 trees is quite a lot. And they basically have to be planted all at once within the same week. Let's see how this goes. Would be very nice. And the plan is to pick you up at the airport in Seville and have some accommodation in a nearby hostel and feed you well and show you around, and then together we plant a lot of trees here in this area sometime around November. Also an update on this. So some of you might remember there was an issue with the authorities, and they came and accused us of having built a fence causing a public waterway, and supposedly we did this in an illegal fashion. We didn't build anything, because this fence, you see the posts there, is more than 35 years old. By now we know whose fence that was. It is the fence of the neighbor on that side, an absent landowner owning a lot of hectares, and in another place they also own a lot of land. And in the meantime they have figured out that someone had removed their fence. They weren't very happy apparently, and they asked that very same authority for a permit to build the fence again, but now following the current rules. So the issue was, and actually I have to move to show you that better. So here I can show you that better. So there's a rule that from the high water mark, 5 meters left and right, you cannot build anything. And 100 meters left and right from the high water mark, this is considered land managed by the water authority. But within 5 meters of the high water mark, you can definitely do nothing. And in the past, apparently that has not been observed, or the high water mark was in a different place. But I would think nobody really cared about, or maybe the rule was different, because the fence was a little bit too close. In retrospective, I would think it was within 4 meters of that high water mark, and somehow that now got important. There was a police report, and it's probably coincidence. And based on all that, they thought, oh, the new owner had built a fence, and therefore he got letters, and of course they had a hard time writing a letter to us because they used old addresses, and if you are not a Spaniard, you don't leave any records in the Spanish system. So there was a lot of challenges and trouble, and instead of asking politely, they assumed the worst thing, and so the dance started. But in the meantime, it looks like they archived the case, so case closed, no legal action against us. And like I mentioned, the owner of that fence, the owner of this land there, wants to build it again, but this time 10 meters away from the high water mark. So there where that fence post is, another at least 5 meters towards that tree, and they are asking, they are waiting on the permit, and once they receive that permit, then they will build it. And that means that our land is now closed as it was before, and we can take care of all these cattail plants here inside of this waterway. They weren't there before, so somehow we have something to do with their appearance and their maintenance. Interestingly, the cattle that you see there in the background, they are not very much interested in that, but ours are. But then of course we bring them here, and that's the only thing to eat when there was the fence. And so they took good care of that cattail. And that is also where I found the fish otter a little while ago. And if I zoom in, there on the other side, you see, this is the same creek. The outflow of the water reservoir, there's no cattail. So somehow it emerged here.